Okay, let's truly unpack this. In a world that often demands our unquestioning trust in large institutions, is having a deep-seated fear and distrust of the state actually a sign of mental imbalance? Or could it be, in our modern reality, the highest degree of sanity?
Hmm, that's a really provocative question to start with.
It is, isn't it? And that's the intriguing and perhaps unsettling premise we're diving into today. We're moving beyond simply labeling statophobia as an irrational clinical fear, something akin to a phobia of spiders or heights.
Right, the standard definition of phobia.
Exactly. Instead, the rich tapestry of our source material invites us to reframe it entirely. We're going to explore it through the lens of what's termed adaptive neuroticism, proposing it as a logical, even an evolutionarily necessary response to our increasingly surveilled, interconnected, and often coerced environment.
A response, not just a reaction.
Precisely. This deep dive is all about challenging and redefining what we might consider normal or healthy vigilance when confronting the immense centralized power of the entity we call the state.
And if we really connect this to the bigger picture, what we're discussing here isn't merely about a specific fear. It's about an entire paradigm shift in how we understand individual agency, sovereignty, and, well, survival in the digital age.
A paradigm shift, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Our journey today will meticulously explore why a healthy, critical skepticism of what's often termed the Leviathan, that powerful metaphorical term for an all-encompassing state authority, the concept dating back to Thomas Hobbes, isn't presented as a disease within our sources, but rather as a vital functional adaptation. We'll trace its surprising historical roots, reaching back to figures often widely misunderstood, like the Luddites.
Yeah, definitely misunderstood.
Then we'll uncover its vibrant modern manifestation in what some within this framework have termed the cult of cryptography. Ultimately, our sources argue why what some outside this perspective might reflexively label as paranoia can actually be a crucial, indeed an indispensable survival tool for the individual.
So ingrained distrust is a feature, not a bug.
Exactly. It's about seeing it not as a psychological flaw, but as a protective feature, a form of intellectual and practical self-defense.
Precisely. And for you, our dedicated listener, in a world saturated with information, complex systems, and ever-evolving technologies, truly grasping these perspectives is more than just an academic exercise. It's absolutely crucial.
It really is.
This deep dive, we believe, really gives you a fast track to understanding this complex issue, delivering those aha moments that cut through the noise in a really nuanced and often misunderstood area of thought. This isn't just about exploring psychology, history, or political philosophy. It's about understanding a growing sentiment, particularly among those who prioritize individual sovereignty, extreme skepticism, and self-sufficiency. It offers concrete insights into the practical implications for your own digital life, how you engage with technology, and ultimately how you choose to perceive and navigate the world around you.
Okay, so where do we start?
So let's kick things off by really digging into this idea of phobia and moving it decisively from the realm of pathology, from something deemed a mental disorder, into what our sources present as a sophisticated defense mechanism.
Right, the clinical definition first.
Yeah. When most people hear the word phobia, their minds likely jump to a clinical phobia, an irrational, disproportionate fear of something that, in reality, poses little to no actual harm. Think arachnophobia, that intense fear of spiders, or acrophobia, the fear of heights.
Things where the reaction seems way out of proportion to the actual risk for most people.
Exactly, where the emotional or physiological reaction far outweighs any objective danger in the vast majority of daily encounters. That's the traditional psychiatric understanding.
Got it.
But when our sources discuss statophobia, we're examining something fundamentally different. This isn't an irrational fear of the benign. Instead, what's being described is a systematic, reasoned distrust of an entity that legitimately holds what's called a monopoly on force.
A monopoly on force. That's the key phrase there, isn't it?
It absolutely is. This isn't just a turn of phrase. It means the state is the only entity legally allowed to compel you, through physical means if necessary, like arrest, imprisonment, or property seizure, often without direct individual consent or real-time accountability.
Yeah, that's a unique power. No other entity has that legitimate claim.
Right. So this isn't a fear of the unknown or a disproportionate reaction to a benign object. This is presented as a considered, consistent, and arguably rational response to a known, powerful, and often intrusive entity.
Okay.
This is a pivotal moment in our analysis. We're talking about a profound fundamental distinction here, one that moves beyond mere semantics to redefine the very nature of what constitutes a rational fear in a modern context.
It really does.
It's about recognizing that the entity in question, the state, possesses the legitimate authority to enforce laws, collect taxes, and use that inherent capacity for force, which fundamentally alters the nature of any fear or distrust directed towards it.
What's truly fascinating here, according to the frameworks we're exploring, is how it completely flips the script on what we might reflexively consider healthy psychological states.
Flips the script, yeah.
We're defining adaptive neuroticism as the concept that describes how traits often conventionally seen as negative, such as anxiety, distrust, and a heightened sense of vigilance, become not just advantageous, but critically protective when an individual is operating within a genuinely hostile or a pervasively surveilled environment.
So context is everything.
Absolutely. Think about it.
Wow.
In a truly idyllic, non-threatening world, constant anxiety or suspicion might indeed be debilitating, preventing one from forming connections or taking necessary risks.
Sure.
But our sources argue that in an environment where one is under constant observation, where actions, even innocuous ones, can be misinterpreted, where data is relentlessly collected, and where individual autonomy faces systemic pressure, well, these very traits transform into vital survival mechanisms.
Okay, so how do they transform? Like vigilance, for example.
Yeah. For instance, that constant vigilance, which in a clinical setting might be labeled as a symptom of generalized anxiety, suddenly becomes a crucial intelligence gathering and defense mechanism. It's about scanning the environment for anomalies, anticipating potential threats, and taking proactive rather than merely reactive steps.
Mm-hmm.
The most powerful analogy our sources consistently use is this. The individual expressing statophobia is akin to a prey animal in the savannah.
Wow, okay. Prey animal.
Yeah, their heightened awareness, their quickness to perceive potential threats, their constant vigilance, these are not presented as a disease or a disorder. Instead, they are seen as essential for survival in the face of predators.
And the predator in this analogy is?
In this modern analogy, the predator is the state and its vast apparatus, possessing that unique capacity for coercion, observation, and enforcement we talked about.
Right.
It's framed as a natural, almost evolutionary response to a demonstrably real and pervasive environment of potential threat or encroachment. So the powerful takeaway here is that in a genuinely surveilled world, what society might reflexively label as a psychological flaw can actually be a crucial, highly evolved survival superpower.
A superpower. That's quite a statement.
Well, from this perspective, yes. This perspective argues that extreme skepticism, a core value often observed in our audience, isn't just a political stance, but is in fact a deeply ingrained functional survival strategy within this framework.
And if this perspective is valid, that what some might label as phobia or paranoia is actually a form of heightened logical prudence, then it carries truly profound implications for how you, our listener, might understand and navigate modern society.
Huge implications.
It fundamentally shifts how we might be encouraged to perceive news, government actions, and even our own daily habits. If we accept adaptive neuroticism as a valid framework, then behaviors often dismissed by the mainstream as excessive caution or eccentricity might actually be incredibly rational, even prescient.
It forces you to reconsider what normal trust even means.
Exactly. It compels us to ask a crucial question. What if the normal level of trust expected by society and its institutions is, in fact, the truly irrational state? What if that blind trust is, paradoxically, the more dangerous mindset in our current complex environment?
Yeah.
This redefinition, as presented in our sources, offers a powerful intellectual framework for many of our listeners, especially those who already possess a general distrust of governments, corporations, and traditional media. It offers them a coherent narrative for that feeling that something is wrong, validating their skepticism and encouraging them to critically evaluate the systems they interact with every single day.
That compelling discussion leads us quite naturally into our second key area, exploring the first adapteds.
The Luddites.
Exactly. We often encounter the Luddites, those English textile workers of the early 19th century, painted with a very broad, often simplistic brush as merely anti-technology, backward, or even ignorant saboteurs.
Right, just smashing machines because they hated progress. That's the usual story.
But our sources strongly argue that this is a highly dismissive narrative, one that misses the profound philosophical underpinnings of their actions. What's crucial, and what our research really digs into, is recontextualizing the Luddites.
Okay, how so?
Their true concern, as these analyses reveal, wasn't technology per se. It was specifically the imposition of technologies that destroyed their autonomy, their craft, and made them dependent on a new system of control.
Ah, so it wasn't the machines themselves, but what they represented and did to their lives.
Precisely. Their resistance wasn't against machines in general, but specifically against those machines, like the new wide-frame looms and shearing frames that served to subjugate them. It was, in essence, a profound struggle about preserving their sovereignty, their dignity, and their established way of life against innovations that, while perhaps increasing efficiency,
Right. Efficiency is always the justification.
simultaneously served to centralize power and strip individual workers of control over their labor and livelihoods. Think about those specific textile machines of the era. They fundamentally de-skilled master craftsmen, reducing them from artisans to mere machine operators, diminishing their economic value and pride in their work.
Taking away their craft.
Exactly. These machines also centralized production into vast, impersonal factories, which removed individuals' ability to work independently from their homes or small workshops. This forced them into a new industrial system where they became reliant on factory owners, subject to strict new disciplines, and often faced harsh working conditions.
So it was about control, fundamentally.
Fundamentally, this raises an important question for us today. Are we too quick to label historical descent, particularly against technological change, as mere backwardness, thereby missing a deeper, more fundamental philosophical struggle for individual autonomy against subjugating systems?
That's a great question.
The Luddites, as our sources reinterpret them, recognize that certain technologies, despite their purported efficiency, came at a profound and unacceptable cost to individual freedom and self-sufficiency. Ultimately, the message from the digital Luddite isn't anti-progress, but pro-sovereignty. True technological empowerment, as argued by this perspective, means fiercely curating your tools to serve your freedom, not forfeit it.
That's a fascinating recontextualization of the Luddites. But for someone listening who might still struggle with the leap from 19th century looms to, say, modern social networks, what are the most striking, undeniable parallels our sources draw between those historical technologies of control and the ones we navigate today?
Ah, the modern parallels. That's crucial.
Yeah, I get really enthusiastic about this connection because the Luddite struggle against those subjugating textile machines is presented as directly analogous to the fight of what's often called the modern anarcho-capitalist or the privacy advocate against what they perceive as modern technologies of surveillance and centralized control.
It's the same pattern, different tools.
Exactly. Let's look at some concrete examples pulled directly from our source material that illustrate this continuity. Take social networks, for instance. While they undeniably offer connectivity and convenience,
And they do, that's undeniable.
right, but our sources argue they also operate as massive data collection engines, creating vast digital profiles of individuals. This data can be, and often is, leveraged not just for advertising, but for influencing behavior, censoring dissenting viewpoints, and, critically, creating exploitable vectors for state actors or corporations to monitor or control.
The system itself becomes the control mechanism.
Right. It's not about the communication itself, but the system through which it occurs. Then there are central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs.
Ah, yes, CBDC is a big topic in these circles.
Huge. These are government-issued digital currencies that, unlike decentralized cryptocurrencies, are fully centralized and controlled by the state. While often touted for their efficiency and potential for financial inclusion,
The potential for control is immense.
that's the core concern within the anarcho-capitalist framework. They are viewed with extreme skepticism because they could enable unprecedented levels of government control over individual spending. Imagine a world where the state could, theoretically, program your money to expire, restrict certain purchases based on your social score, or even freeze your funds instantly for non-compliance with directives.
That's not just financial control, that's social control.
Huh.
A digital cage, as you said.
Exactly, a potential digital cage. And finally, consider digital identification systems. These can create a single, overarching digital identity for every citizen, making it dramatically easier for governments to track, monitor, and potentially restrict access to essential services or even travel based on a digital score or state-mandated behavior.
Yeah, the linking of everything to one ID is a major concern for privacy advocates.
For those who value radical individual liberty, these technologies are seen not as tools of advancement, but as new, more insidious chains, strikingly similar to how the Luddites viewed the power looms that systematically stripped them of their craft and autonomy.
It's the same fundamental threat to autonomy, just updated for the digital age.
This recontextualization, as presented in our material, deeply resonates with those who already champion individual sovereignty and offers a powerful historical lineage for their current resistance against perceived technological subjugation. It bridges centuries, creating a sense of historical continuity for the ongoing fight for individual freedom against overreaching systems.
And this leads us to a crucial, nuanced distinction that our sources emphasize, defining the digital Luddite.
Right, because it's not about just hating tech.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's vital to understand that a digital Luddite, within this framework, is not someone who indiscriminately rejects all technology or who yearns for a pre-industrial agrarian existence. This isn't about shunning computers,
Yeah.
the internet, or modern conveniences wholesale.
It's more sophisticated than that.
Much more. It's about a highly discerning, conscious, and philosophically informed choice. A digital Luddite, in this context, is the one who refuses the technology that makes them a servant, opting instead for alternatives that actively preserve and enhance their sovereignty.
Okay, so choosing tools that empower, not enslave.
Precisely. It's a deeply nuanced position. They are not inherently against innovation or progress, but they are intensely critical of which innovations they choose to adopt and how they integrate them into their lives. They draw a clear line, discerning between technologies that genuinely empower individual freedom and those that, by their very design, foster dependence, enable surveillance, and consolidate centralized control. It's an active, deliberate refusal of subjugation, a conscious decision to maintain self-ownership and autonomy in the face of what they perceive as digital enslavement. This perspective serves as a cornerstone for those in our audience who are deeply interested in life hacking or biohacking strategies, all aimed at achieving greater autonomy in every conceivable aspect of their lives, from their health to their finances.
So, if the Luddites offered us a historical mirror showing a continuous struggle for sovereignty, how does this fight manifest today in our hyper-connected digital landscape?
Right, the modern battleground.
Our sources now take us into a vibrant, often misunderstood community, a modern tribe forging what they call digital autarky through a fervent dedication to cryptography.
Digital autarky.
Oh,
Self-sufficiency in the digital realm.
exactly. To truly understand this, we need to first grasp the concept of technological autarky itself. Simply put, it's defined as the principle of being self-sufficient and independent of the system through the judicious use of specific technological tools.
Judicious use, keyword.
Keyword. The goal here, as outlined in our material, is absolutely crystalline: to empower individuals to place themselves, as much as technologically feasible, beyond the reach of state observation and coercion, thereby securing and enhancing individual sovereignty in the digital realm.
Building your own infrastructure, essentially.
Pretty much. It's about meticulously building a personal technological stack that minimizes reliance on centralized, vulnerable, or surveilled infrastructure. This isn't just about protecting privacy, it's about actively achieving genuine digital independence and resilience.
And the cult of cryptography, as named in some of our sources, is without a doubt the clearest and most active modern manifestation of this adaptive neuroticism in practice.
Okay, cult of cryptography. That sounds intense.
It is, and the term itself is provocative, maybe even used somewhat tongue-in-cheek by some. But this community, which comprises many cypherpunks, developers, and privacy advocates, exemplifies the practical application of deep, systematic distrust as a survival mechanism in our increasingly digital age.
So not a literal cult, but a community with strong shared beliefs and practices.
Exactly. They are not, to be clear, a literal religious cult, but rather a community bound by deeply shared principles, practices, and a fervent dedication to cryptographic solutions, often viewed as extreme or excessive by outsiders. Their dogmas, if you will, are foundational to their entire approach.
Okay, what are these dogmas?
The first and perhaps most paramount is don't trust, verify.
Don't trust, verify. Heard that one before.
You have. It isn't a mere suggestion. It's a core, radical philosophical stance advocating for pervasive distrust of third parties, be they governments, multinational corporations, or any intermediary that positions itself as a trusted guarantor of data or transactions. It insists on independent, cryptographically verifiable proof rather than blind faith.
Why is that so critical for them?
Because, as argued, any entity positioned as a trusted third party, no matter how benevolent their intentions might seem, becomes a single vulnerable point of failure.
Ah, a central point of attack or control.
Exactly. It represents a potential vulnerability for surveillance, data exploitation, or centralized control. The second central dogma is code is law.
Code is law. Okay, unpack that.
This belief posits that the rules and logic embedded within transparent software code, especially open source code, should be the ultimate authority. It implies a profound trust in verifiable, auditable code over fallible, politically motivated, human-interpreted laws or regulations, which can be arbitrary or change with the whims of power.
So math over politics, essentially.
In a way, yes. If the code is transparent and auditable by anyone, its behavior can be predicted and verified with mathematical certainty, effectively removing the subjective need for trust in an opaque or potentially corruptible human institution. This is a direct reflection of their deep skepticism and an unyielding desire for verifiable truth, aligning perfectly with the values of logic, autonomy, and extreme skepticism held by many in our audience.
And what's truly fascinating and often misunderstood by outsiders are the specific rituals practiced by members of this cult.
The practical application of the dogmas.
Right. These aren't religious ceremonies, but rather a systematic, disciplined suite of practical behaviors and technological choices that demonstrate their unwavering commitment to technological autarky and digital sovereignty. For example, there's the obsessive use of PGP encryption that's pretty good privacy.
Right, for secure email and communication.
PGP isn't just a simple lock. It uses a sophisticated system of public and private keys to scramble your messages, making them virtually unreadable to anyone without the correct private key, ensuring only your intended recipient can decipher them. Its obsessive use is a conscious, deliberate effort to secure private communication from all forms of surveillance, whether from state agencies or malicious actors.
Keeping conversations private.
Then there's the strong, almost dogmatic preference for open source software, often referred to as FOSS, free and open source software.
OSS, yeah, huge in this community.
Why FOSS? Because its source code is openly published and available for anyone, anywhere to inspect, audit, and modify. This transparency is key. It means no hidden backdoors. No secret surveillance mechanisms can easily hide within the software. It aligns directly with that don't trust, verify dogma.
You can see what the code is actually doing.
Exactly. If the code is transparent and auditable by experts and the community, you can collectively verify exactly what it does and, just as importantly, what it doesn't do. Another cornerstone practice is the operation of Bitcoin or Monero nodes.
Running your own node.
Yeah.
Participating directly.
Right. For those running their own node, it means they are directly participating in the decentralized network of these cryptocurrencies, verifying transactions themselves without relying on a third-party service like a centralized exchange or wallet provider.
Taking control of your own financial verification.
And while Bitcoin offers a transparent, pseudonymous ledger, Monero is particularly favored within these circles for its enhanced untraceability and anonymity features, contrasting sharply with Bitcoin's more public transaction history.
Monero for privacy, yeah. That's a big one.
This offers a higher, more robust degree of financial privacy from potential state oversight or financial surveillance. Finally, communication via anonymous networks like Tor, the Onion router, is absolutely essential.
Tor for anonymous browsing and communication.
Tor works by routing internet traffic through a worldwide network of volunteer relays, encrypting it at each hop. This process conceals a user's true location and usage patterns, enabling anonymous communication and effectively evading network surveillance. These aren't just technical curiosities or abstract concepts. They are conscious, systematic acts of digital self-defense foundational to this philosophy.
Each of these ritual, as our sources describe them, is, in essence, a conscious, active, and highly reasoned attempt to place oneself out of the reach of state observation and coercion.
Practical defenses.
Tangible, practical defenses against what is perceived as the omnipresent Leviathan in its digital form. PGP encrypts communications, ensuring their privacy. FOSS provides assurance that the digital tools you rely on aren't secretly surveilling you. Running your own cryptocurrency node, particularly for Monero, allows individuals to bypass traditional financial intermediaries and centralized control, specifically addressing the desire for untraceable transactions and financial autonomy.
Right, escaping the traditional financial system.
And Tor provides critical anonymity, circumventing network surveillance and censorship. These aren't just theoretical stances, they are tangible, everyday actions driven by that adaptive neuroticism, a rational, protective response to a perceived hostile and surveilled digital environment.
It makes sense.
This entire ecosystem of tools and practices is a direct, living response to the concept of the digital panopticon, where the individual feels constantly under potential observation, even if they cannot see their observers.
And it's no surprise then that these specific tools and philosophies, as explored in our source material, resonate deeply with various segments of our audience, particularly our core groups.
Yeah, the tech-savvy listeners, the privacy advocates.
Exactly. We're talking about cypherpunks, software developers, system administrators, and cybersecurity professionals who are already intensely interested in cryptography, decentralized networks, and open source principles. For them, this isn't just theory, it's often their daily practice, a core part of their professional and personal identity.
It's their world.
It is. Even for our broader audience, including individuals who are perhaps just beginning to question established narratives, sometimes referred to as red-pilled, these tools offer concrete solutions and a path forward from that general, often inchoate feeling that something is amiss.
Gives them something actionable.
Right. It moves them from simply feeling discomfort to actively doing something about it. This discussion provides a direct validation and practical guidance, as presented by these frameworks, for their drive towards self-sufficiency and autonomy in an increasingly complex world.
Okay, so that covers the sort of high-tech end of things. What about everyday behaviors?
That brings us squarely to signs of paranoid sanity, how statophobia manifests in practice. Now, for the mainstream observer, some of the everyday behaviors we're about to discuss might be reflexively dismissed as paranoia, pure and simple, or even just quirky habits.
Yeah, like covering your webcam. People often laugh at that.
Exactly. But for libertarians, anarcho-capitalists, and those who align with the concept of adaptive neurotics, these aren't signs of mental illness or irrationality at all. Instead, according to our sources, they are considered essential practices of digital hygiene, a proactive approach to protecting one's digital self and physical autonomy.
Digital hygiene. I like that term.
Me too. The true insight emerges here. What some call crazy, others call careful. It's a fundamental difference in how one perceives the underlying reality of the digital world and the omnipresent nature of potential surveillance. It's about being proactive rather than merely reactive, taking control where others might passively accept the status quo.
Indeed, the rationale behind these behaviors, when examined through the lens of adaptive neuroticism, is deeply rooted in a sophisticated understanding of the pervasive nature of surveillance and data collection in our modern world.
So let's get specific.
Okay, let's delve into some specific examples that illustrate this point. First, consider the simple act of covering laptop webcams.
The classic example.
It might seem extreme to some, but it's presented as a practical, low-cost, and absolutely foolproof defense against remote, unauthorized surveillance. Our sources cite countless reports of webcams being compromised through malware, allowing malicious actors or state agencies to silently observe individuals in their most private spaces.
Yeah, those stories are out there.
A physical cover is an immediate zero-tech barrier that directly counters that feeling of being under a digital panopticon, a sense of omnipresent, unseen observation, where you feel you could be watched at any moment, even if you're not, leading to potential self-censorship.
That Bentham idea applied to today.
Exactly. This concept, rooted in Jeremy Bentham's architectural design for prison control, is now applied to our digital lives, highlighting how psychological control can be achieved even without constant active surveillance.
Okay, what's next? Cash.
Second, let's discuss the preference for using physical money instead of cards or digital payments, like Pix, which is a common digital payment system in Brazil, similar to others globally.
Right, sticking to cash.
Physical cash offers untraceable transactions, providing a genuine, inherent form of financial privacy. This stands in stark contrast to the inherent transparency and extensive data trails left by virtually all digital payments.
Every swipe leaves a trace.
Every card swipe, every online transfer, every Pix transaction generates data that can be logged, analyzed, and potentially linked to an individual. This concern becomes even more pronounced, as our sources argue, in the context of potential central bank digital currencies, CBDCs.
There they are again.
Where every transaction could theoretically be logged, monitored, and even controlled by the issuing state. The use of cash is, therefore, a deliberate act to maintain a sphere of financial anonymity and autonomy.
That makes a lot of sense from the perspective of an individual seeking complete financial privacy. But what about something like biometrics? Many people find using their fingerprint or face to unlock their phone incredibly convenient. What's the rationale for refusing biometrics, as explored in our sources, when it seems to offer such ease of access?
That's an excellent point, highlighting the trade-off between convenience and security, or maybe convenience and autonomy. While biometrics like fingerprints or facial recognition are undeniably convenient, Our sources raise significant concerns from a privacy and autonomy standpoint. The primary issues include the potential for centralized biometric databases.
Big honeypots of sensitive data.
Exactly. They represent a single point of catastrophic failure if compromised, as biometrics are unique and unchangeable identifiers. Once your fingerprint or facial scan is compromised, it's compromised forever, unlike a password that can be changed.
Good point. Can't change your fingerprint.
And there's also the critical concern about forced access. An individual can be compelled, under duress, to unlock their phone with a fingerprint or face scan in ways they cannot be compelled to reveal a strong password they genuinely do not remember.
The legal angle. Fifth Amendment implications, potentially.
Precisely. This directly impacts one's right against self-incrimination or coerced access to personal data. Therefore, preferring a complex, memorized passphrase over biometrics is seen as a more robust defense of one's digital assets and personal sovereignty.
Okay. And what about something as seemingly mundane as reading terms of service and privacy policies? Most people just click accept without a second thought. Why would diligently reading them be considered a sign of paranoid sanity?
Because for the adaptive neurotic, as defined by our sources, it's about informed consent in active data protection, rather than blind acceptance.
Knowing what you're agreeing to.
Exactly. This isn't just about legal compliance. It's a commitment to understanding exactly what data is being collected about you, how it's being used, who it's being shared with, and what rights you might be unknowingly relinquishing. Our sources point out that these documents often contain clauses that grant vast permissions to corporations to collect, analyze, and even monetize personal data in ways most users would find shocking if they actually read them.
Yeah, the devil's in the details, usually buried deep.
Diligently reading them is a refusal of this passive ceding of control. It's an active, intellectual defense against becoming a commodity in the data economy. It's about protecting one's informational autonomy, an increasingly vital aspect of overall freedom.
That's a powerful point. And finally, what about the preference for downloading a program rather than using a web-based version that collects data? For many, the convenience of a web app is undeniable, accessible from any device. What's the hidden danger from this perspective?
The danger, as highlighted in our material, lies in control and data exposure.
Control again?
Always. Locally installed software generally offers significantly more control and less inherent data exposure compared to cloud-based or web version services. When you use a web application, you are constantly connected to a remote server, and that server is continuously collecting data on your usage, your interactions, and often much more.
It's just constantly feeding data back.
It's an ongoing data stream flowing back to a centralized entity. With locally installed software, especially open source options, the data stays on your device, and you have greater control over its flow. You can disconnect from the internet, inspect network traffic, and often modify settings to restrict data collection. This preference is a direct manifestation of the don't trust verify dogma, opting for a system where you have maximum control and minimum reliance on external, potentially surveilling servers. It's about minimizing one's digital footprint and actively resisting the mechanisms of the digital panopticon that the state and large corporations utilize.
Right.
It's about taking back control where you can, rather than ceding it out of convenience or ignorance.
As you reflect on these examples, what resonates most deeply for you? Have you ever stopped to consider why someone from this particular framework might take these deliberate steps, even if they seem unconventional?
Yeah, it forces you to think differently about everyday choices.
For many adopting this philosophy, these practices have moved beyond mere caution. They are integral to a lifestyle centered on digital sovereignty and personal autonomy.
When we synthesize all these diverse examples, from covering webcams to preferring cache and scrutinizing terms of service, the central argument for what our sources term paranoid sanity becomes strikingly clear.
Okay, bring it together.
These are not the random acts of a madman or mere eccentricities. They are presented as the highly rational, coherent actions of someone who has understood the true nature of the digital panopticon and acts proactively to protect themselves.
Rational action based on perceived reality.
Exactly. It's a considered rational and protective response to a demonstrable environment of pervasive surveillance, relentless data collection, and undeniable potential for coercion. This entire discussion reinforces the central idea of adaptive neuroticism, that these behaviors, often viewed as extreme or pathological by mainstream society, are actually highly logical and beneficial survival strategies within the specific context of our modern technologically advanced surveillance state.
So not a disorder, but a strategy.
This isn't a disorder. It's presented as an evolved, indispensable form of self-preservation in the digital age. In a genuinely surveilled world, what society might reflexively label as a psychological flaw can actually be a crucial, highly evolved survival superpower.
And this detailed exploration directly illuminates how these practical behaviors, as argued in our source material, align with the core values often cherished by our target audience.
That alignment is key for resonance.
It is. These practices resonate deeply with the values of individual sovereignty, extreme skepticism, self-sufficiency, logic, and economic freedom that define many of our listeners. For those already predisposed to these ideas, it provides a strong sense of intellectual validation and practical guidance, reinforcing their existing worldview.
Validation and tools.
And for our audience members who are just beginning their journey of critical inquiry, it offers a coherent narrative and actionable steps to address their feeling that something is wrong. It's about empowering them with the tools and the robust rationale, as presented in our deep dive, to live a more autonomous life in the digital age, embracing digital hygiene as a path to greater personal liberty.
Okay, that covers a lot of ground.
So, after this extensive journey, what does all this mean? Let's bring together the main threads of our deep dive. We've explored how statophobia, far from being a clinical disease, is presented in our sources as an evolutionary response to a world increasingly dominated by powerful surveilling entities.
An adaptation, not an illness.
Exactly. We traced its surprising historical roots, finding profound precursors in the Luddites' struggle for autonomy against subjugating technologies, seeing how their fight echoes through the centuries.
This historical lineage.
And then we explored its most advanced modern manifestation in what's been termed the cult of cryptography, a community defined by its unyielding dogmas of distrust and its systematic, practical rituals of digital self-defense.
Our deep dive brings us to a crucial, perhaps unsettling final reflection, as articulated by the thinkers in our source material.
Okay, the final thought.
In the 21st century, the very line that separates what we traditionally call paranoia from what we consider simple prudence has, in many fundamental ways, been utterly erased.
The line is blurred or gone entirely.
We would argue, provocatively as these sources do, that the true insanity may very well be blind, unquestioning trust in systems demonstrably designed to surveil, control, and extract value from individuals.
That flips the script completely.
Yeah.
The trusting ones are the irrational ones.
From this perspective, potentially, yes. If we pause to genuinely consider the pervasive data collection, the immense potential of digital identification, the far-reaching implications of central bank digital currencies, and the constant digital monitoring that characterizes our modern existence, then an unquestioning passive acceptance of these systems could be seen as a greater disconnect from reality than active, informed skepticism. In this transformative light, statophobia is not presented as a pathology. It is rather framed as the immune system of individual freedom.
The immune system of freedom, I like that.
It is, according to this perspective, the body politic's natural, crucial defense mechanism against an ever-encroaching, ever more technologically capable state. This reflection powerfully reinforces the core beliefs explored in our material, offering a sophisticated philosophical underpinning for the worldviews of many within our audience, providing both comfort and community and robust intellectual reinforcement for their psychographics of extreme skepticism and profound value for individual sovereignty.
Absolutely. And with that, we offer a direct call to action for you, our listeners, straight from the source material.
Okay, what should you do?
As you go about your day, pause and genuinely reflect on this question. What is the one technology you use every single day, but over which you have absolutely no transparent control? Think about it deeply. Really consider its implications for your autonomy and your data, and then start distrusting it today.
Just start questioning.
Start questioning. Question its necessity, its true purpose, and its potential control over your life.
This raises an important question that lingers. If vigilance is indeed adaptive, and if personal sovereignty in the digital realm is increasingly challenged, what new, perhaps even more sophisticated forms of digital hygiene might we see emerge as surveillance technologies continue their relentless evolution?
Yeah, what's the next evolution of these practices?
And perhaps more fundamentally, how will society as a whole be compelled to reevaluate the true meaning of trust? Not just in technology, but in the institutions that wield it, as we collectively navigate this increasingly complex and pervasively surveilled world.
Big questions.
That's a provocative thought for you to ponder long after this deep dive concludes, inviting you to continue your own independent exploration.